What is going on, everybody? Nathan King here with Auburn Undercover. Welcome back to another edition of the Postgame Pod here at Auburn Undercover here inside of Rupp Arena in Lexington. They dropped the lights a little bit after the game, working on some stuff, and down on the floor it's pretty loud right now. So I'm kind of up in the rafters. Hopefully, a decent enough spot for the postgame show here. But wow, what a tremendous day! Of course, a monumental performance and a momentous, historic afternoon for the Auburn basketball program, taking down Kentucky today inside of Rupp Arena, 94-78. Of course, first and foremost, this clinches an SEC regular season championship for the Tigers. They needed at least one more win. Their magic number was one heading into this weekend. They needed one more victory in order to do it, and they get it here. They don't waste any time. They get it here against Kentucky. As I record this right now, Alabama and Tennessee is still ongoing. I believe the second half has just started. And if Alabama loses that game, Auburn will clinch the league completely outright tonight. They will be the standalone SEC champion. No one can catch them in the last week. If that doesn't happen, if Alabama wins on the road in Knoxville, then all Auburn has to do next week is win one of their final two games, or Alabama has to lose again, which obviously they play Alabama. So if Alabama loses Florida, that would give it to Auburn. But obviously Auburn just trying to control what's out in front of it. But the Rupp Arena curse also ends today. I mean, it had been since 1988, 37 years since Auburn had won inside of Rupp Arena. And Bruce Pearl knew, he talked about it, he said it was going to take a great performance. He had taken some great teams into Rupp Arena previously and come away empty. And today it was one of the best games Auburn has played this season, relative to the fact that Johni Broome was rendered ineffective offensively for a large portion of this game, and you didn't have Denver Jones for a large portion of this game. And yet Auburn's three guards really shined in this one. Miles Kelly, we'll talk about him, 30-point performance here in Rupp. Chad Baker-Mazara goes for 22, second straight game for him with 22 points, and then Tahaad Pettiford with 21 points in this game. Those guys combined for 72 points, those three guys. Kentucky as a team scored 78 points, so just an incredible performance. Started with Miles Kelly, hit a three-pointer on the first play of the game. We've seen them run that action for him so many times, trying to get him open. It's been most games this season that they've tried to get a shot for Miles Kelly on the first possession. He was 4 of 5 from beyond the arc by the time he checked out of the game for the first time, like 7 minutes into the game. You could tell it was working for him. You could tell he just had that shooter's touch this afternoon. When you're banking in three-pointers that aren't even straight on, he banked in back-to-back threes from the wings. It obviously turned out to be just an incredible game for him. He was one short of tying the Auburn record for three-pointers in a game. Would have needed 10. He goes 9 of 14 from beyond the arc in this game. 30 points for Miles Kelly. Again, just he was sort of the catalyst for this group. And look, it was pretty clear early on that Kentucky was doing a good job against Johni Broome. It was, I believe, 2 times across the first 3 possessions. When he got the ball in the post, he either lost it or had his pocket picked. And so they were doing a good job of doubling. They were doing a good job of bringing pressure and saying someone else has to beat us. Well, multiple other players beat them for Auburn. Chad Baker-Mazara got rolling early. Another game for him where, and we talked about it after they played Ole Miss, and he scored 22 points in that game on Wednesday. When he is rolling, he just does so many things for this team. Bruce Pearl said he might be Auburn's most valuable player, which is a wild thing to say considering Johni Broome. Maybe most valuable in this game, most valuable other than your national player of the year. But yeah, Chad Baker-Mazara on both ends had a steal early in the game. He hits a three-pointer. Tahaad Pettiford had the first three-pointer for Auburn that was not from someone named Miles Kelly. And it was an incredible performance today for Tahaad Pettiford because of the situation he was thrust into. Denver Jones suffered a bone bruise. Bruce Pearl said he got an x-ray during the game, left with 8:33 left in the first half. Denver Jones exited the game, went to the locker room, came back. They were stretching out some stuff, did some stuff on the bench, but never checked back into the game. So Tahaad Pettiford essentially went the entire second half at point guard, went the final 8 minutes of the first half, went the entire second half at point guard for Auburn, and just was absolutely spectacular. Of course, 21 points, 6 of 10 from the floor, 8 of 9 from the foul line, 4 assists, and playing a season-high 33 minutes. Tahaad Pettiford had 0 turnovers. So, obviously, again, talk about those guards. It was a guard-oriented win for Auburn here today. Denver Jones had 4 points before he checked out. Chris Moore had 5 quick points. He hit a corner three-pointer there in the second half. Johni Broome finishes 3 of 9 from the floor. He was 0 of 5 from the floor in the first half. He scores 8 points in the second half, gets 6 rebounds, but this was not one of his best games. Amari Williams deserves a lot of credit for Kentucky for playing some really physical defense down there with Johni Broome, but Auburn was able to get really great production from elsewhere in its lineup, and that's what it was going to take to win this game here on the road. Auburn's defense also kind of sealed this victory. Obviously, scoring 94 points felt like that's what it was going to take, scoring 90 plus. Bruce Pearl had the stat earlier this week that I believe Kentucky was averaging 91 a game at home, and so you knew they had a really potent offense, but also needed to slow down that offense a little bit. It was tied for a season low in three-point makes for the Wildcats in this game. They only went 4 of 17 from deep. All 4 of those came from Kobe Brea, who, if you don't know, he was a Dayton transfer last year. He shot like 51% from 3 last year on like 9 attempts per game. He's the best shooter in the country. Mark Pope gets him to transfer into Kentucky. Auburn was trying to run him and everyone else off of the line, and that led to some opportunities. That led to Kentucky driving to the basket. That led to that being their main focal point of the offense. Lamont Butler just felt like 4 or 5 possessions in a row in the second half, just kept going back to the basket over and over again. That led to some free throws. There was a lot of contact. They really weren't letting anything go, kind of calling everything near the basket. That leads to Kentucky shooting 38 free throws in this game. They made 28 of them. None of that mattered. That all ended up being rendered ineffective for Kentucky. Ended up not mattering in the final result because Auburn was just so potent on the other end. And their defense was able to make some stops, was able to get some occasional. Obviously, holding Kentucky under 80 on their home floor is fantastic. Auburn's defense played very well, particularly in that first half, but just felt like Auburn always had a response. Their lead was up to, I believe, off the top of my head, 22. Yeah, Auburn's largest lead in this game was 22 points in the second half. Kentucky trimmed it down to about 13 with 10 minutes left. And the reason I'm kind of giving these specifics, I understand the game went out for a lot of people on ABC. And so Kentucky trimmed it down to as close as 13 in the second half, but Auburn just kept having responses. It kept being get a stop on one end, come down and make a basket. And even if Kentucky goes and hits 2 free throws, you make a basket. And so they were just kind of trading, and the lead kept kind of going up and down and up and down. And eventually, Miles Kelly had a 4-point play there in the second half that it just felt like a gut punch. Felt like a gut punch to Kentucky's chances, pushed Auburn's lead back up to 20. Auburn led by 20 at the under 8 timeout in this game. And it was just kind of a surreal environment here because this is obviously a basketball cathedral. This is a place that is so well renowned in the sport, and it's just a phenomenal environment. But it was quiet. It was quiet for most of the second half. Whenever Kentucky was even on defense, fans weren't really making that much noise. There was an older Kentucky fan near me that was yelling down to the court. You could hear him in this building when Kentucky was on defense. You could hear one guy in 20,000 people. And at the under 8 timeout, Kentucky fans just left. They decided to go ahead and leave. And I mean, it just in emphatic fashion, Auburn was able to end a 37-year drought here at Rupp Arena, obviously making some history in the meantime in terms of winning an SEC title. So this is the 5th SEC championship under Bruce Pearl. The fact that they not only have clinched it with a week to go, but they could clinch it outright with 2 full games left, with a full week of SEC play remaining, it speaks to what this team has done from wire to wire, how dominant they have been to be sitting here at 15-1 in this conference, potentially the best conference in the history of college basketball. Just goes to show how impressive what Auburn has done this season. But of course, as anyone would tell you on this team, obviously the job's not done. They've got big aspirations for the NCAA tournament, but a heck of a way to kick off March. And you definitely want to hang that banner for such a tremendous body of work for Auburn this season. You want to get some rings, you want to get some accolades, and they're going to do that with another SEC regular season championship. So a momentous day for this Auburn program, 94-78. Here inside of Rupp Arena, Auburn ends its Rupp Arena drought, slays its Kentucky road game demons, and finally gets one here in Lexington. Texas A&M next week, and then Alabama to close out the season next Saturday. My name is Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for joining here on the post-game podcast at Auburn Undercover. Be sure to keep it locked, auburnundercover.com. Already got a ton of coverage from after this game. Going to have a couple stories we got Tahaad Pettiford and Miles Kelly. Talked to them after the game. A couple stories from them. We'll obviously have my notebook tomorrow before I leave town, and so be sure to keep it locked at auburnundercover.com. We'll talk to you all soon.